Good morning. I very nearly chickened out of this last night. Where's Lucanio? It was your fault. A friend of mine used to say, growing up is really hard. I had to do it again today. I started my connection with this process yesterday morning with a talk at Carte in Johannesburg. And I walked in and out of there safely. I knew what I wanted to say. I was quite happy that I was... someone spoke to me yesterday, what's heiligmaking in Engels? Sanctification. The church word that I spoke to someone yesterday afternoon, and she said, as a student, she felt that she didn't need sanctification because she was sanctified already. I felt a bit like that yesterday. I was so much further along as most of my audience. I was so happy with myself. And they didn't touch me because it was a white audience, mainly. And then suddenly, in the course, I had something else yesterday afternoon that also rattled me a little bit. And then we had a conversation last night, and I suddenly knew, not so much, that I have to learn. And learning is difficult, because learning implies that what you thought you knew and what you thought was perfect isn't. I don't mean learning new, getting new information. I mean learning here. So that's what we are setting ourselves up for if we're really serious here today. And I was told last night that white people need to know the history. It doesn't matter if blacks don't. I don't agree. But I do think that white people do need to know the history. But I also think that it will help if black people can understand, not excuse, understand the history as we lived it. So that is what I'm putting in front of you today. I grew up in Hartswater and later Keimus in the Northern Cape. I did not know a single African person. The people I knew, apart from the white people, were colored. Their first language, like mine, was Afrikaans. And someone said, a fish is the last to become aware of the water, because the water just is. You don't realize as a child, you don't look at your environment, it just is. The colored people that I knew, I did not know one colored person who was educated. The colored people that I knew were uneducated, poor workers. So my reality as a child was that people who looked different from me were followers in society, never leaders, were lesser, no, maybe not, I'm not sure, on a personal level. I was brought up, like so many white kids, by two colored women. My parents trusted them implicitly. They left their child with them. Throughout the day, they left the whole house open, as we all still do every day. And then we think that black men steal all the time. But you get what I'm saying. And if racism is the belief that others are inferior, I was that by default. That was the reality around me. So Peter Dirkhuis has said that racism is like, being a racist is like being an alcoholic. You can never say you are not. You can only say, I didn't act like it today. And I think for white South Africans of my age and about 20 years younger, that is the fact. Because that is how we grew up. In 1976, Alan Drury published a book called A Very Strange Society about us. That's what it was. And the fish doesn't notice the water until you are made aware. And this is what we are trying to do here. Okay. And you can only get to the point of being made aware when you get to know other people. And journalism for me was the catalyst for that. It kicked me out of my little box. We all like our little boxes with people who are like us. We choose our friends because they speak the same language, they laugh at the same jokes, they sing the same songs, apart from Steve. And they share your cultural bubble. So unless you either take a conscious step out of that or something else forces you, you can very easily go through life only talking to people who are like you and who support your views of the world. It's not nice to have to accommodate others. But in journalism, it is impossible to stay within your own box. So I was really privileged. I mean, I was 23, white Afrikaans NG Kerk dogtertjie at the Burger in Cape Town, and black people were dangerous, and the townships were severely dangerous in my head. I mean, they were as well, but... so off I go in my little car to do an interview for the women's page, very soft little story, on women in Vrygrond, which is near Muizenberg in the Cape, a squatter camp who had a netball club. So it's a soft story for the women's page. And I sit in this woman's shack across her little formica table with the plastic flowers, and she serves me tea, and it is clean as a pin, and she looks just like my mother, but she's black. It was a severe shift of perception, I can tell you. So much so that I remember it today. And then, of course, with the whole, being a journalist in South Africa from late 80s to about 2000 was heaven. Because so much was happening. There was so much news every day. And so much of it was amazing and wonderful. We had a ringside seat. And at Carte Blanche, we used to say we were introducing South Africans to each other because the mainly white audience had never come across black people who were educated, shared their values, also wanted to make this place work. They did not know that. And now we all had to make room for that in our heads. And, the first successful commercial farmer who was not white. I mean, our white viewers had to pick up their jaws from the floor. Bishop Tutu, suddenly redeemed from being what my colleague at the SABC in the mid-80s called a snake, to being the savior. And, of course, his humor and his twinkling shifted the views of white South Africans, of our white viewers. Not only the good things, crime, violence in the townships, but no doubt the country was better than it was before. Anyone who says that is not true has no historical sense whatsoever. And I don't only mean for black people. In the late 80s, my husband spent 2 years in the army. Thank the Lord, not in danger, but wasted 2 years of his life. because of what was happening in this country, because of the circumstances at the time. Ons was wragtig nie beter af nie. In the process, of course, I personally got to know black people from all walks of life. But I also, you know, when you are little, when you grow up, your people are the good people. You trust your parents, you believe them, you honor them. They are the people that teach you your values, so they are the good people. And in the Afrikaans community, we were a proud people, proud of being godvreesend and honorable and upright and all those things. And then suddenly there was Dirk Coetzee sitting across the table from me, and Dirk Coetzee was a charming, attractive, sexy guy talking to me in my own language, telling me how he kidnapped and murdered people and took his 13-year-old son along for the ride. Not all Afrikaners are good people. It was quite a shock. And in the process, what actually happens is that your stereotypes die. That if you lucky, if you can think it through, you realize that all stereotypes are lies. That a group of people are just a group of people. And in that group, there will always be people who share your values, whom you can trust, with whom you can share things, and there will be people that you can't. If you walk into a church and you are not church-going people, it doesn't mean that everyone in the room is completely different. You can still share some values, you can still find a basis of trust, even though you are different in whatever way. And I think more generally among white people, with the transition in South Africa, the major change that happened was that we went from us, only us, and this is our country, and the black people just happen to live there, live here, and we'll just deal with them as we can, to widening that circle and saying, okay, us now includes, kind of vaguely and a bit carefully, but includes a much larger reality. And all of us can now work towards the same vision of a shared, prosperous, peaceful South Africa. Isn't that what we all want? And in those heady days, miraculous days full of heroes, who was it? There's a play where the main character says, "Unhappy is the land that needs a hero." This land was seriously unhappy. We were very lucky to have heroes. But we don't anymore, so have the heroes so much. We, as the previous speaker said. Okay, so we started, I think, to develop social capital. Trust, shared values, reciprocity. The person who came up with the idea of social capital worked with the problem of the commons in the village. We all have sheep, they all have to graze on the commons. In order for it to work for all of us, no one must let his sheep overgraze the commons. That is social capital. I will take my sheep off the grass before they've had their fill, because I trust that you will also do it. So that next time when it's my turn, there will still be something to eat. You go and paint a classroom at a school, even though you may not have a child there, because a good school in your community lifts the whole community. It's called reciprocity. It's doing something, putting something into the pot without immediate benefit for yourself, but with benefit to the whole, building up the whole. That is social capital. And I think that that started to grow. You know, I always think of that when robots go out in South Africa. We're a funny lot. In some ways, we are it's the complete Wild West. In other ways, we all sit there neatly going 2 cars from this side, 2 cars from that side, 2 cars from this side. If there's taxis, you have to be a bit more careful. But that's a shared value. We all accept that those are the rules of the game. So we will do it like that. But I think presently, the country is going back into us and them mode. We're all crouching into our corners. And we're in the social capital. In the social capital theory, they make a difference between bonding and bridging. Bonding is me and my tribe. It's what you find in a gang. And anyone outside, I just kill. Boof. Bridging is when you reach out to the wider society, and of course, that is much better for the whole of society. Okay, and I think the basis of that is fear. From white South Africa, fear that they will take away what is important to us. What is that? Quiet streets, good schools, an Afrikaans university, which is very important emotionally. And I rationally accept that we have to do that. But please just realize that it is hard. That we are immensely proud of what we have built up in 80 years in Afrikaans. And that when we have to give it up, it is sore. That doesn't mean we don't have to do it. But some sympathy sometimes is in order. Okay, so the only way out, I think, is to identify one central, non-negotiable value. And I had this kind of light bulb moment on Wednesday evening when I was working on this thing, when I realized that this is actually my bedrock value. And that is South Africa for all of us. And that is why I cannot support Solidariteit, who are doing amazing things. But it's just for us, because they can't. I mean, they say it, they spell it out. They can't, so we will for us. And if some people from them also benefit, well, so be it. But it's not actually about that, it's about us. No. South Africa for all of us, with all we've got. That is the only power-generating force that can take us forward. And to honor that value, let go, unfriend people who make racist jokes. Don't just be uncomfortable and, put your toe into the floor and say, nog 'n chop. Unfriend them. They are not like you, even though they may look like you, speak your language, and know the same songs from the past, and get emotional when they sing them, as you also do when you allow yourself. Because these values, unfortunately, because they were not written on our bones as children, are intellectual, much more difficult to keep to them. They don't come naturally. You must be conscious to do it. I must say, I think it's a waste of precious energy to spend time with people who don't believe in South Africa for all of us. If they want to go to Canada, let them. Fund them. I think also it's true for black people. The next time you stand next to someone who's singing a song in a language that the white people in the group do not understand, and the song says, happiness is hitting the white man, I don't think so. You must also step forward. I understand your fury. I thank the Lord that you don't act on it usually. But this is where we are in this moment. These are the facts. The white community has huge resources, training, education, whatever. If you send us all to wherever, the country will be poorer. So, color is only skin deep. A shared vision is much, much more important than that. So let's look deeper than skin deep for all our sakes. Thank you.